You've probably heard of Frank Abagnale Jr., the guy who tricked the FBI, posed as a pilot, a doctor, even a lawyer, all before turning 21. Sounds unbelievable, right? But the real story behind Frank Abagnale isn't about a teenage criminal genius. It's about how one man fooled not just banks or airlines, but the entire world. And trust me, this isn't just about a master con man. It's about one of the biggest cons in Hollywood history. So, hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon. Let's dive in. The man behind the legend. Frank William Abagnale Jr. was born in 1948 in Bronxville, New York. He had a pretty normal childhood. His dad owned a stationery business, and his parents seemed happy. Until they weren't. When Frank was a teenager, his parents divorced, and that broke him. He didn't know who to stay with, so he just ran away. He was 16, with barely $100 in his pocket. No plan, no direction. According to him, that's when it all started. The cons, the forged checks, the fake identities. He claimed he was just a desperate kid trying to survive, but somehow turned into one of the most brilliant con artists of all time. Frank said he started small, faking checks here and there. Then he claimed things escalated. Suddenly, he was wearing a Pan Am pilot's uniform, flying around the world for free, and cashing fake paychecks while people saluted him. He said he also became a doctor in Georgia for almost a year, and even a lawyer in Louisiana after supposedly passing the bar exam. If you take his story at face value, it sounds insane. A teenager pulling off adult-level cons across multiple countries. And that's exactly what made his story so fascinating. But what's fascinating doesn't always mean it's true. The crimes that made him famous in Catch Me If You Can, Frank bragged about forging more than 17,000 checks, worth over $2.5 million, across 50 states and 26 countries. He said he was wanted by authorities all around the world and constantly dodging an FBI agent who was obsessed with catching him. He painted himself as this charming, unstoppable trickster who fooled pilots, bankers, doctors, and lawyers. According to him, the FBI finally caught him in 1969 in France after years of cat-and-mouse chases across continents. He said he served time in brutal prisons in France and Sweden before being extradited to the US, where he got a sweet deal, helped the FBI catch other criminals, and they'd let him walk free early. That part of his story made him seem like the ultimate anti-hero. The bad guy turned good. It's the perfect Hollywood narrative. A genius criminal who redeems himself by using his skills for good. But the problem is, a lot of that story doesn't hold up under real evidence. Fast forward to 2002. Steven Spielberg makes the movie Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio as Frank and Tom Hanks as the FBI agent chasing him. The movie blew up. It made over $355 million worldwide. People loved the story, and Frank became a celebrity again. He even worked as a consultant on the film, telling everyone it was about 80% accurate. Reporters asked him if the story really happened, and he kept saying yes. It was all real, every twist and turn. But behind the scenes, journalists and investigators started noticing things didn't add up. The dates, the timelines, the records, it all started to crumble when people actually checked. For years, no one had questioned his story too deeply because, honestly, it was just too entertaining. But when someone finally did, the truth hit hard. The truth behind the con. In 2020, journalist Alan Logan decided to dig into Frank's past. He spent years looking through police records, court documents, and newspaper archives. And what he found completely tore Frank's legend apart. Logan discovered that most of Frank's story was straight-up fiction. The big worldwide crime spree? It never happened. Between the ages of 17 and 20, when Frank said he was outsmarting the world, records show he was actually in jail for most of that time. The supposed $2.5 million in fake checks? Court records show it was actually around $1,500 total, a huge difference. And all those wild escape stories from maximum security prisons? Made up. He was never even held in most of those places. Even the whole teaching at Brigham Young University story, where Frank said he worked as a sociology professor, was debunked decades ago. Reporters called the university, and the school flat out said they'd never heard of him. One official literally said he was as phony as a $3 bill. And that FBI agent he claimed chased him for years? That guy didn't exist. The real FBI investigation into his case lasted only a few months. So basically, the most thrilling parts of Frank's story, the ones that made him a legend, were either exaggerated or completely fake. So why didn't people catch on sooner? Simple. Frank was just too convincing. He spoke with confidence, dressed sharp, and always told his story like it was gospel. He wasn't just selling a lie. He was selling himself. From con man to motivational speaker. Now, here's where Frank truly pulled off his biggest trick. After getting out of prison, instead of running from his past, he started selling it. He rebranded himself as a reformed con man who wanted to help others avoid making the same mistakes. He claimed to be working with the FBI, helping them catch fraudsters, and traveling the world teaching corporations how to prevent scams. But there's zero proof he ever officially worked for the FBI. In fact, when journalist Alan Logan asked the Bureau directly, they said there was no record of him ever being employed there. Still, it didn't matter. People believed him. Corporations paid him thousands of dollars per speech. He became a sought-after motivational speaker preaching about ethics, trust, and honesty, all while basing his career on lies. The irony is almost poetic. He appeared on TV, gave interviews, and talked about his crazy past, like it was gospel truth. The more he told it, the more people believed. And Hollywood's movie only made his myth even stronger. He didn't just fool banks or the government anymore. He fooled the entire world. That's when you realize something. Frank's real genius wasn't in forging checks or pretending to be a pilot. It was in storytelling. He learned how to make people want to believe in him. And that's a skill even the FBI couldn't catch. The greatest con of all. Here's the honest truth. Frank Abagnale Jr. didn't steal millions of dollars, but he did steal something far more valuable: our attention. He tricked the world into believing in a legend that never existed. He went from a small-time crook with a few fake checks to a global celebrity, all by writing a story and selling it as fact. And for decades, no one questioned it. Because the story was too good, too exciting, too entertaining to doubt. Even today, he still gives talks and claims parts of his story are true. Maybe he's convinced himself at this point. Or maybe, deep down, he knows that the myth is the only thing keeping him relevant. Either way, he's still doing what he's always done, getting people to buy what he's selling. But here's the wildest part. He really did become what he pretended to be. Not a pilot or a lawyer, but a master of illusion. A man who turned lies into a legacy. He didn't just con banks. He conned history. The real Frank Abagnale Jr. isn't the teenage genius Leonardo DiCaprio played. He's something much simpler, and maybe much smarter. He's a man who realized that in a world that loves good stories, the truth doesn't always have to get in the way. So yeah, He might not have lived the life he bragged about, but in the end, he still pulled off one of the most impressive cons ever, convincing the world that he was the greatest con man of all time. Which story should I break down next? Comment below if you've seen Catch Me If You Can, and tell me if you still believe Frank's story after hearing this. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories behind Hollywood's biggest lies.